Hey, what's up, guys? So the title of this video is going to be How I Saved Myself with the Help of Others. Um, I don't even know where to begin. Um, I guess I'll begin with talking about I'll work from I'll start by discussing how others have helped me. Well, what does it mean to be helped by others? I want to start by saying being helped by others is not in the way or in any sense what the mind, what movies, and what other people, and sometimes religion, consider to be help. People don't, in my experience, most often, and more often than not, people don't actually offer you help. Not in any intrinsic way. In movies, they will have some sort of dialogue between someone who's in need of help and the helpee or the helper, and it would be something casual like, hey, I can help you out with this, or here, let me lend you this amount of money, or hey, things that actually don't happen in real life. Growing up, in my experience, being helped was by others was actually my first experience through suffering, what other people call suffering, and what I consider suffering. But it's suffering until you understand how this suffering helps you. Then it is a blessing in disguise. So, all my life, I've gone through many experiences that have challenged me. It has tested me, tested my heart, it tested my strength, it tested my resilience, it tested my discipline. But most of all, it tested my own willingness and capacity, my own devotion to who I am. Although influence was a part of this journey for me, this was actually how others have helped me. By others seemingly underestimating me by believing I was some naive person, believing that because of my skin color I couldn't achieve certain things, believing that because maybe I didn't know how to articulate the way I felt most times, that I was incapable of ever speaking and articulating in such ways as I do now. Believing that, all types of things about me, believing that I am a good-hearted person, that my kindness was for weakness. All of these things were experiences in which people had helped me. And it's interesting to say the least because, well, it didn't feel like it helped in the moments that it was happening. As a matter of fact, I was pretty blinded to this help. I was, and I was also blinded to how it was hurting me as well. It was really weird. Um, it wasn't that I was naive. Maybe in some sense I was, but it was something a little bit deeper than that. It was more like I was overly optimistic. And I was so optimistic about life and about myself and about others that whatever they did and however they thought and felt about me, it never actually occurred to me that that was what was happening, that that was reality. I never actually absorbed it as part of my reality, you know? It's because most of these experiences I've had, since they were not upfront or direct confrontation, they were mostly subtle, very passive, indirect ways of, influence and underestimation of who I was. And at the very same time, they, they also misrepresented who I was because at some points in time, once they did, I guess, find out that the way I was not because I was like them, meaning that not because I acted such ways, not because I was hurt or not because out of suffering or not out of, unresolved anger or trauma as they were in my eyes consciously. It was actually because I was a good person. And this, after they figured this part out, is where things started to take a turn, is when people began to really show up as their suffering, meaning they began to act on behalf of their hurt and wanted me to feel that, you know, their shattered idea and sense of self, they wanted me to also be shattered as well. They didn't have the strength to piece themselves together, though they preached about wanting peace for themselves. Very, very interesting things. Um, but regardless, I held true to this optimism. Um, and this is something I was innately just born with. Um, Optimism. It didn't matter how much someone would try and tear me apart. I could never see it in that way, and I could never see things through their way either. So the help came from all of those things, which is weird because I didn't absorb it, and yet I still experienced. It's not like I was exempt from experiencing the pain of, these people that I trusted or I called friends and co-workers and colleagues. I believe that the help that was received wasn't in the moments. It was more like moments after the fact. Like it wasn't like those instances where something happens and then, say in school somebody says something to you and in the moment you just, you don't say anything. You're just like, okay, whatever, like what is this about? And then it kind of lingers on. Well, you forget about it, as you go out throughout your day. And then when you get home, maybe sometime, in your own solitude, um, the incident comes up in your head again and you're kind of rethinking it and you're reflecting on it. And then you start to imagine it from all different types of perspectives. And then you start arguing with the person in your head, or at least you become upset to some extent that you didn't say something that you now thought of. It's like that. It's not as if in the moments those things had affected me. It was like I had to catch on to those moments. Or rather, those moments never really bothered me because of how devoted I was to this optimism, devoted I was to myself. Um, and so, in that way, though people misunderstood me because they saw something in me that looked similar to them, and at the very same time, they saw something different about me. you know? And as soon as they understood what the difference was, is when they actually began to really underestimate me and almost begin to treat me like they treat themselves, really. At least in the moments, again, I didn't realize that's what that was, right? I had to really reflect on my life a couple times in solitude to understand that most people, after finding out my intentions, the fact that I'm not this, triggered, uh, I guess like angry person, really not as they are, or I'm not really suffering internally as they thought I should be or something, as they are. You know, I like to say as they are because I understand things through the lens of psychology. Carl Jung, he talks about the shadow and the unconsciousness, the unconscious self. So, as I learn more about psychology and things of that nature, and then I reflect back, now it seems that their psychology is to reflect who they are onto me, right? Now, I've been through many trials and errors of this, right? It's not like the first time this has happened, I was just like, oh wow, okay, they're helping me. No. No, 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 no. I have been through it many times, and I still never gave up. Um, though through each and every time that this would happen, it became more mm, something. So each and every time that this underestimated someone would underestimate me, someone would undermine me, someone would test me, someone would challenge me, someone would enter, become envious of me. And when they become envious is when they feel like they're in competition, which in my own, which it would be felt through me as if I'm in some type of competition with someone, even though I've never truly competed with anyone, right? Like that's not who I am. So I know that wasn't coming from me. Um, yeah, so each and every time that would happen, it would actually change the way that I saw this darkness or this pain or this suffering, right? What once was like confusion, like what's happening to me, then slowly raveled to, well, why is it happening? And is it happening to or for me? Then it was like, well, is it happening through me? And then it becomes, well, wait a minute. How is this happening? Why is this happening? Where I'm now observing other people and I'm less absorbing other people. And so, I became the observer of past experiences and then also current ones, where I would just observe who people were before and after they thought they knew me, right? Pretty much is what it was. And this is how it always happened. They would have this idea of me, and then after a while of getting to know me, maybe it would change and shift, and now they have this new understanding of me, and now they think that they have some sort of upper hand. But I don't know why they thought that, but it did, and so I became the observer, and again, this understanding of it through psychology. I observed that actually maybe this pain, I started to actually transform those questions into, well, what if these people are hurting me because they want me to uh stop, like imagine, like I'm pretty sure there's some type of movie out there. I'll give you a concept. It's more like there's something chasing after you, or think of a haunted house. Like, or think of those. What there's a certain game that I used to play. I don't know what it's called at the moment, but oh, it's like that. Okay, there's like a scene in Little Nightmares Part 2 or Part 1 where they're like the little character is like walking, and there's like, oh yeah, so there's like hands, right? And so the little character has to go toward the like the shovel or whatever, and each and every time that it turns its back on these hands, it would actually start crawling toward it. But as soon as the little character you turn the character to face toward the hand that's like coming toward it to reach out and grab it, it would freeze. And then when you turn back around to go closer to the tool, it would go after you again. So it's like that. And I started to look at other people treating me in a certain type of way in that lens. Like imagine instead of them just having some random impulse, or imagine instead of you thinking, oh, these people are just bad people, that there's actually some deeper meaning to this, right? And that's pretty much what Carl Jung had discovered. Um, and then it basically just kind of transpired from there. So I started to just kind of conceptualize the idea of suffering for myself and how it's being experienced through me by other people, right? I stopped absorbing this term of suffering. First, I had to understand that suffering wasn't something that was happening to me. It was more like a narrative that's being absorbed by other people's experiences, right? And so when I understood that and I became the observer, I was like, okay, people are acting in the similar ways that once hurt them, just kind of understood. Everyone had some sort of traumatic story. And, that's another thing. People would open up to me about these things, whether asked or not, right? And so, because of that, it allowed me to observe suffering through their own, as themselves, not as me. And that was kind of like the first bit of separation or detachment from a narrative that never actually fit me or aligned with me. Okay. So that's how I was able to seek help through other people, because now each and every time suffering or people would act in these, maybe would consider rude ways, which I don't really consider rude anymore. I don't really care how people act toward me at this point. But whenever those things would happen, it was like, okay, well, it's teaching me, it's telling me to learn a lesson. Like it's not going to stop until I say stop, right? Until I place a boundary, until I place a wall, until I say no, right? So that's kind of how I looked at it, right? Like no one's going to stop until you say stop. No one's going to da 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 until you say no, right? And so it's like a series of trial and error with that, because then I had to recognize that that is what's needed of me. Like I needed to learn those things. Those are my lessons, right? So how they acted toward me showed me what I needed to work on within myself. So that kind of goes back into the first part where I said how I saved myself, because I transformed the experience of suffering as a means of flipping it in first separating myself from a narrative that I'm not suffering. Instead, other people are suffering and they're teaching me, the suffering's teaching me what I need to learn about myself. Does that make sense? Um, and so that's pretty much how you save yourself. You just learn yourself through other people, I guess. And in that way, everything kind of like pretty much flourishes from that. Otherwise, I mean, you flourish either way, but I felt a lot better thriving and flourishing in this way than I ever did, believing that this was my narrative, believing that this was who I was, and absorbing other people and flourishing through that. Like, I wasn't actually flourishing, actually, because then, I still never went home with a greater sense of self during those times. I was able to gather a sense of self through this new, way of being and perceiving things, And in that way, I grounded a lot of things, I grounded a lot of concepts. I was able to take insight in without fully absorbing it or allowing it to obstruct my own narrative and my own way of thinking. And it's just kind of what makes taking accountability a lot easier. It also makes it a lot easier to release the idea or the need to be right all the time because that was me at some point, right? And that's just the thing, right? Every little thing that people threw my way were things about me that I could have been or that I probably was in some sense, right? Like when I was younger and I probably behaved unconsciously or subconsciously in these ways. But the thing is, the need to not even the need, just the urge. There's always a greater urge from me just to I don't know. It wasn't like I don't know because the reason why I say I don't know is because I'm not sure how other people experience life, like through suffering, right? Like, are they like, is it not like, can they not feel this urge to want to do better or to want to hold themselves accountable or to actually want change? Like, those are my questions because then it would help me kind of understand, well, where is my urge? Like where did this urge come from? Because I know that it's in everyone because I'm also human and I'm not to say I'm nothing special, but it's just like we're all human beings. Like if I'm capable enough, then damn the fuck well everyone else is. And that's been my whole thing about it as well. Like as soon as I began to shift the narrative, I began tolerating less from people because I'm like, well, I'm a fucking person. I too have been through suffering and I still never resisted. Well, I did resist. I did. But it's like I still as much as I resisted, I still equally as much tended to this I don't know, this higher self, whatever you want to believe in. You call it consciousness, call it God, call it Jesus, call it spirit, higher self. It doesn't really matter. Um, but to kind of tie everything together, because I just kind of learned this too, is that, you know, everyone, I think that, whether you're going through, whether you go through life with that perspective or, through life through, my perspective or something similar, I came to the realization that all of it is actually bringing you closer to the change that you actually seek. Like you can resist all you want, but because each and every time that just because you're still here, right? You cannot be exempt from evolving or ascending in some sense, right? So resistance may slow down your evolutionary process or your journey, whatever, but it's not completely going to cease it. Like you can't stop that from happening. And so it doesn't matter whether you resist, whether I don't know, you do whatever you want, I guess, but that's pretty much like it. Again, I just question. I think, okay, I believe that because free will, it's free will. The answer is always going to be free will for me because everyone has free will, right? The free will is basically the choice to resist greater. It's the choice to resist better. It's the choice to resist change. You can talk it all you want, but it does not mean that you are going to actually behave on its behalf, right? And I think because of that, you know, that's pretty much I mean, that just answers my own question. Um, and then finally, uh, I don't know. Um, oh, yeah, because free will exists, it makes me think like, okay, so have people been conscious about the way that they've been treating me or not? That's not, or treating each other? Like, people are have to be aware, right? They have to be conscious of it. They do. And so I've just been, I believe that everyone knows what they're doing at the end of the day. Like, there's no true unconscious behavior or impulse that happens because you choose to resist it, so therefore you choose your suffering, and then when you choose your suffering, you choose to act on its behalf, and so therefore you literally just decided that, hey, I'm going to behave on behalf of suffering, which is going to cause other people to suffer. So that is literally a conscious decision. Like you consciously chose to resist, right? So that's the whole thing. Like with Carl Jung, he says it's unconscious and stuff, and there are other spiritualists who, say things are unconscious, but that's not how I look at things because again, like I've done the same shit that most people have done, right? Like I've I've drunk before. I've gotten drunk before. I was still fucking conscious. I don't know how people pretend to be this very lala loopsy type of fucking person when they drink in themselves to, black out. I've smoked weed, I've smoked cigarettes. Um, I haven't gone any further than that. Um, I've done no psychedelics or nothing like that. I don't know. But still, like I've done basically like, mainstream stuff, and I still don't understand how I will never understand it because again, like all of it's pretty much pretend. Like you're pretending to be unconscious. You're not unconscious. Like you're just choosing to choose suffering at the end of the day. So that's yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna end it there because if I talk anymore, yeah, I'm already tired. But anyway, guys, if you relate, then let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Um, how have you, I guess saved yourself, right? Or from, was it through other people? Was it just by yourself? Did you talk to someone? What was your experience like? Anyways, if you're looking for a sign, it is 1239, and it is 1162026. Okay. So yeah, with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace and reciprocity.